Good afternoon. My name is Andrew Barden, the CEO of the Kenyan Wall Street. We have a very exciting guest here today with us. We have Kopano Bolokwe, the CEO of the Botswana Stock Exchange. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Andrew. It's a pleasure to be here in Kenya, Nairobi, particularly at the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for agreeing to come on board and talk with us. So we want to learn a little bit more about the Botswana Exchange. So tell us what's going on at the Botswana Exchange.
Yes. Maybe firstly by introducing myself. Like you rightly said, Kopano Bolokwe, the acting CEO of the Botswana Stock Exchange. I've been with the exchange for 13 years, initially as the Product Development Operations Officer from 2011, and got promoted to become the Product Development Manager, a position that has changed to Head of Product Development in 2016.
Okay.
And I've been the interim CEO for the past 3 months, I would say, following the departure of our previous CEO. I've have extensive experience in financial markets, spanning Botswana, South Africa, and the United States and New York, in industries or sub-industries like brokerage, investment management, and I'm here at the Stock Exchange. And I'm leading one of the largest stock exchanges in Africa and in the region, the Botswana Stock Exchange, where I'm responsible together with my team for assets, listed assets, in excess of 750 billion bula, comprising of equities, fixed income instruments, as well as exchange traded funds. And these are domestic equities, foreign equities, government bonds, corporate bonds, commercial paper, sustainable bonds, and exchange traded funds backed by fixed income as well as commodities.
Okay.
So Botswana is a very interesting country with strong macroeconomic fundamentals, ease of movement of capital, stable political environment. And it really makes it very attractive and competitive for us to be one of the best performing world-class securities exchange in Africa.
Well, that's great to hear. On that, how many listed equities do you have on the exchange?
Yes, we've grown over the years in terms of listed instruments, but with respect to equities in particular, we have 32. So we operate the main board, the venture capital board, the OTC board over the counter, as well as the SME board. So, and like I said, domestic and foreign companies. So 24 of these 32 companies are domestic companies, and the rest are foreign companies. On the OTC board, we have one domestic company, and the board is primarily created to enable the company to acclimatize to the listed environment within a stated period of time, and then it will go to the venture board or the domestic main board. Not just equities, Andrew. We have fixed income instruments, 140 of them. Yes, and a larger number
that's the majority of the work right there.
And a larger number is corporate bonds, your plain vanilla bonds, as well as commercial paper, which are short-term fixed income instruments, mainly used for raising working capital. Okay. And then about 7 are government bonds. So government bonds on the exchange, they are bigger in terms of the size and issuance compared to corporate bonds.
Okay. Yeah. And on the exchange in Botswana, I know here in Nairobi, the vast majority of the market cap is owned by foreign investors. There's always a conversation around the role of foreign investors in Kenya's capital market. What is the situation like in Botswana? Do you see that similar thing where you see the majority of maybe the market cap being owned by foreign investors, local investors? What's the situation like? It's
ideal to have a heterogeneous investor base comprising of foreign investors and local investors, both institutional and individual investors. So from a trading activity point of view, foreign investors account for between 35 and 40% of trading activity. The numbers could go higher depending on what year it is, but on average, that has been the case, which means that majority of our investors, therefore, are institutional investors, and our retail investors, domestic, account for no more than 10% of the trading activity on the exchange. But rightfully, if you look at our companies, the larger portion of the market cap comes from foreign companies.
Okay.
Yeah,
Like dual-listed companies?
Dual-listed companies from London, from Australia, from South Africa, as
Okay.
well as from Zimbabwe. The largest company at this point in time is Anglo-American, which is in London and the Johannesburg Stock Exchange.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's quite interesting. And, what is the macroeconomic status, macroeconomic situation going on in Botswana right now? Because bear in mind, many of our viewers are Kenyan. So we're not always up to date on what's going on elsewhere in Africa.
Yeah, Botswana is a beautiful country to do business in. I think for the past 5 decades, we've been blessed with strong macroeconomic fundamentals as we emerged out of being a low-income country. And with the stewardship of our political leaders, we've been able to build the reserves arising from the sale of minerals, particularly diamonds, which have been deployed quite productively into building the economy and various sectors of the economy. You'd be surprised to know that with the pursuit of diamonds, for example, government is able to provide free education. And I'm a beneficiary of that program, free education all the way to tertiary. So stable political environment, strong macroeconomic fundamentals. I mean, we do have deficits which are quite manageable, but we have strong foreign reserves arising mainly from the sale of diamonds primarily, as well as other commodities and beef. And stable inflation environment, predictable, stable interest rate environment. This makes it easy for companies to raise capital, to come into Botswana to do business. We don't have capital controls, so you can invest in the country, in the stock market or any sector of the economy. Your money it's easy to bring in your money, it's easy to get your money out. And we thrive from the, the strong credit rating that the country has. I've got it here that it's really difficult for investors to move away from fixed income to equities because of the high interest rates, and therefore, which is a situation arising from the credit rating of the country, Kenya itself. But in Botswana, I think we are among the top-rated countries by Moody's and Fitch, and this has supported the business environment and the capital markets environment for a very long time, making it attractive and very, very competitive.
Okay, well, that's very exciting. Now, question on the conversation around Pan-Africanism. So there's the Africa Exchange Linkages project that's going on and such. Do you think that there's a future for more interconnectivity between, say, the Botswana Exchange, the Nairobi Securities Exchange, Cairo, elsewhere?
Yeah, there are plenty of opportunities, and I think we are among the leaders in terms of connectivity of capital markets. Because of the unique situation that we have in Botswana, where there is ample liquidity in terms of cash and limited instruments, we became very innovative earlier on, around 2010, to try and export instruments from across the border into Botswana, and then we give them localized status. So ETFs such as New Gold, which I understand you have here, are imported from primary markets in South Africa, given localized status, and this money is able to flow into this kind of instruments. But in terms of broader connectivity, in Africa, we are undertaking a project where we're trying to promote inter-Africa trade. And the success of that project will be underpinned by the mobility of capital within the African countries. So the African Exchanges Linkages project comes at an opportune time in order to facilitate movement of capital that could finance trade within the African continent. And it's impressive. With the tour that I've taken in the eastern part of Africa, I'm seeing real mindset change in Tanzania, for example. There's a lot of infrastructure development. At the time that we were there, they commissioned the high-speed electric train, which is going to improve the mobility of trade, mobility of people, not just within Tanzania, but into the region. We're also seeing similar initiatives in Botswana, through Namibia, through Mozambique. So African capital markets should be at the pinnacle of this, and the ELP project itself comes in very handy. And the ELP project is quite forward-thinking in the sense that African capital markets are characterized by lower levels of liquidity. So you can't solely depend on your own stock exchange and capital markets to find all the best opportunities. I mean, we have limited sectors on the Botswana Stock Exchange, but if you look to Egypt, you'll be able to find other sectors such as health, broader telecom companies listed there. You look into Kenya, you'll be able to find agricultural companies. You go to other parts of Africa, you find a diverse sector. So it comes in very important in terms of diversifying exposure to different geographics and underlying assets.
Okay, now tell me how you speak. How do you speak with, say, international investors? Say you're on a trip. You're in New York City, Greenwich, Connecticut. Speaking with some of these institutional investors. Some of these institutional investors may still think Africa is a country.
Yeah.
But how do you have that conversation? How do you, encourage international investors and such who may be investing in Germany, in the UAE, in Japan, that hey, you should be looking and investing in Africa too?
Yeah. That's a very good question, Andrew. And as the BSC, we've been very deliberate. We embarked on an internationalization strategy about 8 years ago, whereby we wanted to take the BSC to the international markets. And in the early years, much of that included subscribing to international affiliates and organizations, the likes of Sustainable Stock Exchanges Initiative. And lately, we became a member of the World Federation of Stock Exchanges in 2023. I think that has communicated the right and strong message to the international community to say that there is a capital market, there is a stock exchange in Botswana that is at par with the London Stock Exchange, New York Stock Exchange, Luxembourg, in terms of market practices and conduct, and in terms of professionalism and market standards. Yeah. And that's the message that the international community wants to hear, that there is a market that is operated in accordance with the markets that they're used to, that they're investing in. But also, we have deliberately invested in world-class infrastructure from a trading point of view and from a depository clearing and settlement point of view. The systems that we use, for example, come from the same systems that are provided by the London Stock Exchange Group and other reputable data system vendors across the world. And foreign investors want data, and we've been deliberate to collaborate with the likes of Bloomberg, Refinitiv, and other international data vendors, so that we put our data on their faces. And we've done roadshows in the US and other parts of the world, so just to update them, particularly at the time that COVID had just ended and traveling was not so open. We deliberately went to them to see them, to update them about the developments in our market, our strategy, and how we are looking to continue to create a conducive environment and also value for them, which is something that they really, really appreciated. Understandably, foreign investors are concerned about the levels of liquidity in African markets, but we've put together innovative strategies such as market making. We are driving the listing of both foreign and domestic companies into the local market and new instruments. I think, like I said, we've had fixed income instruments growing more than 3 times. Equities are growing not at the pace that we like, but the pipeline is building up attractively because of the education and the outreach you've put out there to sell the listing value proposition, both domestically within the region and internationally.
Yeah, that's a very proactive approach because, information moves markets.
Yeah.
You have to have information. If there's no information, markets are not going to move.
Yeah.
So I guess here's a follow-up question to that. What is the secret to solving the information problem for African stock exchanges?
Yeah, interestingly, Andrew, the information is there within African stock exchanges, but it's not being mined and harnessed in a way that it promotes the visibility of exchanges. What we've been able to do is to mine this data and then package it into different data products and categories. Okay. And besides making the data visible, we also monetize it. We're able to sell it. But then we've structured partnerships with media institutions and television companies that are international, whereby from time to time, we would provide updates about the performance of markets. We bring on board our ecosystem, listed companies, their CEOs, would be featured in these programs to talk about the companies, the domestic capital market landscape, and the individual performances. And one of the ways of also bringing out data is to be part of these frontier emerging markets, as well as international indices provided by S&P, MSCI. And we are lucky that our companies are such of a size and stature such that they can be included in these indices, because that's the first point of contact for international investors. They want to see markets, companies that are within international indices, because that talks to size of companies, that talks to liquidity in those markets.
Yeah, I think that's a good point that most people outside of this industry don't tend to understand.
Yeah.
Is that you have to be included in these indices. You have to show up. You have to, travel to New York. You have to go to Hong Kong.
Yeah.
You have to speak with people, and you have to get this information out.
No, and I appreciate this opportunity because I've realized it's important that when we travel around the world, we also become visible to the geographies that we are in, and those especially the media community. And it's good that this media community has international presence on social media, on print, as well as on television. I mean, being here is a very big opportunity for us in Botswana to be able to communicate to the world about who we are and what we are offering to the international investor community.
Well, that's great. And I'm aware that Botswana is hosting an event later this year. Can you tell us about that?
Yes. So we are a member of the African Securities Exchanges Association, and this year we are hosting, in short, it's called ASEA. So this year we are hosting the ASEA annual meetings and conference in November. So this will be from the 27th until 29th of November in the beautiful city of Gaborone. And we're inviting the whole world to converge in Botswana, and not just being an audience where we discuss issues of capital market development in Africa across broader topics, but also to appreciate the beautiful investment landscape, the beautiful cultural exchange that Botswana has to offer. There's a lot of information we've put out across our media platforms regarding the event, and we are opening up for registration. So I'm encouraging everybody to access this platform, register, and visit Botswana. We are very hospitable people. Besides being at the capital city, you'll be able to appreciate the flora and fauna within the Okavango Delta. And we are the only country in the world that has what you call a delta that stretches from other beautiful countries. You'll be able to see majority of the big five there, but also appreciate how as a country we have contributed to preservation of wild animals, how we're able to cohabit with wild animals, and also the preservation of the beautiful species of trees found in our country.
Well, that's great. Am I invited to the event?
You are invited, Andrew, and your team.
No, we'd be happy to attend, and I think much of what we've talked about today, we're continuing those conversations there during that event, and making sure that conversations around stock markets across Africa and markets, investors, and such from across the continent are involved in regularly meeting and engaging with one another. Collaboration, I've always believed, is more important than competition.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then, Andrew, the highlight of this event, the ASEA conference, would be the official opening by the President of the Republic of Botswana, His Excellency Dr. Mokgweetsi Eric Masisi. In country, we tend to refer to him as the chief marketer of the country, because he's done a great job in his tenure so far as the president of the country in terms of putting Botswana out there to potential international investors. And indeed, tangible results are shown within the economy. People they know about Botswana, they know about our credentials, and that are comfortable doing business with us. So it's touching every sector of the economy with his visionary and leadership.
Well, that's really good, and I think you also see that a little bit here in Kenya as well.
Absolutely,
where the president has taken this role almost of as the marketer in chief of the country to the global community. So, well, I know myself and Erica Suma are excited for the event in Botswana in November. We'll be sure to be there. I've never been to Botswana, so I think it'll be a fun experience.
No, absolutely. There'll be a lot of edutainment social-cultural exchange, and tourism-oriented experiences.
Well, great to hear. And I have one last question for you before you go. This is a fun question I often throw into many of my interviews. And it's a question about you. When you were starting your career, what did you spend your first paycheck on?
Nando's.
Nando's. That sounds great. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Andrew. It's a pleasure.